on the tape, but I should just say that again. We're in the final stretch of the marathon. And when I say final stretch, I mean like we've still got 5 miles to run. Or if each popper is a mile, it's more than that even. But hey. Great to see you, Ailbhe.
It's awesome to see you, my dear. As always.
You were gonna say something funny, I know.
I was just laughing, thinking like, is Popper equivalent to a mile of a run, or would we say he's equal to 1 marathon at Popper? You know, it just kind of depends which way you're looking at it. Or he could be just a cheeky 5 miles.
I would say it's probably like equivalent to a 100-kilometer bike ride. That would be my equivalent. Some of them not so much. Some of them have more downhill than uphill. But man, This was an uphill one, I thought. What did you think?
There's a lot going on here, to be fair. You know, you have to think about a lot. You have to keep your brain going while being totally relaxed. And there's a lot going on. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's funny because 2 weeks in a row we've had very, like, bow ones, all about the bow. And, you know, I did so much practice with just the bow in this one. And I really found, like, I made a huge step up once I realized how much energy, you know, you waste thinking it's the left hand that's causing the problems, and it's really the bow. But having said that, it's funny because it really is quite difficult, even if you understand conceptually how to practice this. I think it's one of those ones that you really need the muscle memory of, you know, many hours of practice, even if you've done kind of the initial work of that.
You know, I spent many years practicing, you know, slow bows and making sure that I could have sound. So, I mean, at least that work has been done, you know, all those exercises that we did over the years. Again, if you can get to the point, for me this was definitely another one where you had to start off and spread. Just so that you weren't thinking about the bow necessarily all the time. Then 2s. And then to your 3s. And then if you could, my favourite, 2 bars to a bow.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you can manage it. And see, can you have a legato, lyrical, phrase-like, relaxed piece when you're doing it 2 bars to a bow? Now, if we all had time to practice that would have been awesome. But, you know, this is one of those weeks where time is money. So
I hear you.
Yeah, exactly. It's all happening. So
go on.
Starting off, I was just going to say, even at the very beginning, obviously, when you get to your second one, so being ready in your bow changes, bow string crossings, I should say. I was actually just talking to a student about this, that quite often people do the karate chop.
Yeah.
Where as soon as they string cross, it's a big jerky angle and then it's a huge accent. It doesn't matter. And of course, the higher up you go, the more the open string is going to sound more brash. So you do have to find a way to get your angles closer. I'm always talking about this in lessons where move. As soon as you're playing the previous note, you should actually be automatically getting closer to the angle you need. So it's just much less effort. And I think overall in this piece, for all of those things that you had, any of those angles, the closer you can get, often people are too late and you get this, that kind of a sound. So if you can, I feel like this entire study actually feels like a crab in both hands, where everything is just like, everything has to just be like, nobody really knows where it's coming from, but you just have to be malleable and really quite legato in how you think about everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's malleable, but I love everything you said with the bow, and I love that idea of thinking about the different parts of the string you actually play on to get closer for the string crossings. I hadn't thought of that at all, but it's so valid. But I have to, like, practice out the confusion of what the bow is doing. I'll tell you where's a really hard one for the bow is 27. So I did a lot of practice there. I mean, even that, so you have to, it's that, okay, the first beat, we're all on one string, and then, but you have to do it really metronomically, like really thinking of those semiquavers in your head.
Absolutely. But with open strings practice, you can never have enough of it. It's just always going to be helpful for this. And sometimes, I would definitely suggest doing that slowly, but also, sometimes people like to sing it along, if you're doing the bow and open strings, because of course it gets a bit, brain melty.
Yes.
If you're kind of like, where am I now? What's going on? So even if you're not a great singer and you can do I missed it. That kind of idea.
Yeah.
So I would do it much, much slower. Because obviously even doing that, great musical exercise for your ear as it is. But just that's another way of practicing it, to make sure that you know exactly where you are. So I think I wasn't very clear with that, but and that's exactly where we change the bow. So just being that clear, and my brain does have to go that slowly the first time because it's hard.
Totally.
Yeah.
So speaking of brain melty and doing things slowly, I wonder how you approach this, but with all of this thumb position stuff, I mean basically all of this second page, I had to make my little, and everyone has their own systems, my like notes about which hand position I'm in my thumb.
Yeah.
So I've got kind of 1, 2, 3, and 4, and it's very confusing when you write it in because you always think like,
it's
what
fingering.
is that random number? Yeah.
Oh wow.
One is like major, minor, or open, and then 3 is an extension backwards and 4. But even then, these patterns do not fall into any of those 4. There's a lot that are like extension back, but kind of major hand position and whatnot. And for me, I kind of thought I have to come up with a system for this because there's no way I'll be able to play this fast enough to do the bowing unless I can just look at each beat and know exactly what my hand has to do. So, but I think it's amazing, it's an amazing opportunity to practice that because so many times, like we sight read stuff and we can just sort of almost chance it. But it's a much different sort of approach, which I think is super useful for like, concerto playing or solo playing where you want to have complete accuracy and control over this muscle memory in a way that you don't feel like you're guessing.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, there's so many different things that come within this bracket that you're talking about. I had a system as well. I do an awful lot of thumb tone versus semitone, or whole step, half step, and marking in T and ST in places where I have a shift going on, just because sometimes it's very important to know what that is when you're going up in a fast run.
Totally.
I think a big thing for me that I found fascinating was where you suddenly needed to save your bow more at the start.
Mm-hmm.
So, classic example for me was bar 8. So, I think with the shift, of course, everybody puts a little extra bow in. You can even see that I'm actually using more bow speed at that, and I don't need to at all. So it was a matter of having to save, and that seemed to happen all over the piece for me. There were just weird moments where there was a lot going on the left hand, part 22. So all of those shifts happening in the left hand while the bow is still wondering what string you're actually supposed to be on. To really save again, because if you do need a little extra bow to give you sound towards the end, it's better that you've saved it at the very beginning.
Absolutely.
So
couldn't
really
agree more.
Thinking about those bars, I think would be very important for people to even have a little time for themselves. Right save or a star or whatever you fancy, just to keep that going. Yeah.
I've got some stars there. I also thought those 2 bars, 22 and 23, were particularly interesting because they're one of the only ones where we have a shift in the middle of a beat.
Yeah.
So for myself, just because it's the only time it happens, and there's so many other patterns where it's not like that in this, I did write in big lines indicating where I'm shifting.
Me too.
Hey, great minds.
I love
but
it.
just on your point of bow distribution as well, I think in addition to obviously like 1-2 more bow when we have difficult shifts and things, I think the other thing is too when we have fast string crossings, I think sometimes it's really helpful to like prioritize spending more bow on those. So again, that same bar, 27 again. Being able, not quite that much, but having this more sort of horizontal feeling. I'm thinking of Beethoven 5, being able to sort of spend the bow in that. Sometimes helps you find the really narrow balance between the strings, I guess, is the thing.
Yeah, and I would also practice it the opposite way as well, just to give yourself extra skills where you see, can you not speed up the bow in any way for the string crossings? Because obviously what you're saying is really, really helpful in order to feel the actual string crossings and it's super necessary. But also then, can you go the opposite extreme entirely and see, can you still have that just using the hand motion and not expending any bow at all, so that then you could actually use it somewhere more in where you might need it, and because we're high up and we actually just need the bow speed to sing a little bit more rather than wait.
Sure. I mean, the interesting thing about those bars, though, from 25 onwards, is it's a moment where he suddenly does give us 2 bows in the bar.
Yeah.
Which
absolutely.
rarely happens. So it's like,
it's a bit of a shock.
Enjoy it! I know. And that's the thing, you can sort of be chugging along in the mode of like, save. Then you get to that bar and you're on a down bow. But then when you get to the tricky string crossing bit, you're like, I'm only here. Yeah. So it's good to practice both ways because that happens all the time.
Absolutely.
In real life.
And you need to be able to instantly adapt your speed and weight in the arm so that you can pretty much be ready for anything. I suppose that's the story of our lives, right? Be ready for anything.
Yeah, I know.
I love
that's
it.
why we do all this. What else?
I'm going to hit you. I thought... I know I was just going to ask you again, when we got to 29, this is a classic case where you do have to move your thumb over. So, where did you move your thumb over? Because I played around a good bit. Where did I want it to go? So just where it happens?
Yeah,
it's interesting to think about where you do it because it does change the feel and the balance in the hand.
Totally, so, yeah. I did leave it till just before myself.
Yeah.
But it's a great point.
I tried a few options.
Yeah, so what else did you try?
No, just I tried moving over as soon as the A string was done. I tried a few, but the great thing about that is I'll have forgotten exactly which one I chose in the end because I can't remember now. So if I was to be playing a piece, eventually I would pick one.
Yeah. And committed to muscle memory. Yeah. I mean, there's advantages to doing different ones, isn't there? Like you said, balance.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's good. And what did you think about 33 onwards, that chromatic passage, and changing substitution shifts?
That's a really good practice. I mean, I did not do this, but I would have if I had more time. Just practice each of those substitutions. You know, each of those notes. And I think, again, where your half steps and whole steps are in that. And being able to, I've got closed and open written over these ones. So I know exactly each one, what's happening. How about you?
Yes, so I really needed to know where, I think there are 3, I suppose, triplets that you can actually, they're all semitones.
Yep.
So I just needed to know where they were, and the rest of them are all the same pattern. So once I knew where they were, then I think I was sorted. But it's still very important to hear the top note. To really be able to sing that line so that you really keep yourself in tune and don't get slightly flat as you go down or anything nasty like that.
Yeah.
And you can also do the lower end as well if you wanted to get very pernickety about it, which I think would be equally useful. But there was no time for that, so top note, it had to be that.
Yeah, and don't forget the old, cheap trick of, you're practicing going along and you get to that A and you're like, oh yeah, just check that the harmonic's there. Yep, it is. Super.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, whatever helps. I like that. Quite often I notice, just as a little aside, in this feature that happens all over the place. That's a terrible example. I'm talking about the one that has the shift at the end. Actually, all of them could be lightened towards the end, because as they get higher, they get louder. But say, for example, the next one. Did you hear the way, because there's a shift, there's extra weight put on both, so you do have to think about that. You do have to lighten both your shift and your bow. And it happens everywhere. It happens in that bar 19, 20, later on when you're playing it in 38, 39, so many of them, 42, because that can really ruin a good flowing line when you get this almost, again, I'm on the karate chop thing, I don't know why. But,
I love it.
Well, that's a useful skill to have, not necessarily when you're trying to play legato.
Yeah, and I think as well, it's that whole thing of anticipation and gesture. I was talking about that a lot today, actually. But, with those, you have to have the sense from even the beginning of that beat where you're going.
Absolutely.
In terms of the line. So, and I think it can really help to think bigger picture in some of this stuff, because you'll just naturally do the release, as it were, rather than be like, every note must be perfect and even.
Well, you can do that at the start, but then when you're actually thinking about it like a piece, then you have to lose all that. Having done all the hard work and all the double stops that you can do, our usual things. That kind of idea that you're checking every single interval as you go. You've done all that, leave it behind, think like a gesture, and then, as you say, I think that's a brilliant way of thinking about it.
A gesture and not a jester. Because I might be both in this one today.
Wow. I mean, I know it's late in the day, but I did enjoy it. I had an eternal giggle.
That was bad, I know.
It was very amusing, though. I'm with you. What about the ending?
What about the ending?
How did you find the very end, the second last bar?
I didn't find it that bad. I mean, I know it's the whole harmonic to non-harmonic thing that you hate. I found the ending quite, grounding after some of the hoops you have to jump through in this one. Basically in one position for the last bar.
Yeah. I wondered where you placed the bow for that. that if you actually go too close to the bridge and put too much weight on, for me I had to come back a little bit for it to sound just really nicely.
I know this is a bit of an aside, but I have these new strings, and I think sometimes I think I love them, and sometimes I think I hate them. They're perpetuals. Have you ever used those?
No, I
They're
haven't.
they're like a low tension string, so they're meant to sound like kind of have the feel more of gut.
Wow.
But it is like, I can't believe, I don't know if I'm just like losing my mind or not, but like the feeling of playing them is makes my cello sound so different or respond so differently.
I'm sure.
So it's been interesting. I wonder if like partially things like that are easier on these strings. Wonder. But it definitely won't take any force, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Because,
well, this is the same. It's definitely further away from the bridge than I would usually play for something up there. Because physically it just won't take any more. So we always keep an eye on that.
There's also the thing of how many notes how slow we have to be with the bow, which makes it harder to play that close to the bridge as well.
Yeah.
That I think that is part of it too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Super.
All right.
Shall we do it?
Is it time? Yeah.
It is time.
Okay. It's really an experience to perform that for the old left hand biz.
Oh
man,
my god, I'm so impressed.
Ooh! Ow, ow, ow! Bravo!
Oh,
Seriously. Seriously.
Yay!
Yay!
Amazing.
Super! All right.
Woo-hoo!
Well, I'll see you for the next one. But before that, I'll see you in person. But I won't.
Woohoo!
We won't be doing. Anyway, yeah. Yay. Cool. Well done.